What is up, Evil Dead fans? In this video, we're going to go over a prop that was used in Ash vs. Evil Dead, the TV series that ran for 3 seasons, and identify it to a specific scene. Now, some of you may not know is I go through a lot of these Ash vs. Evil Dead props. A lot of people hit me up and ask me about the prop they have and what scene it was used in, and for me to identify it if it was used in that specific scene. Because if you did get anything from the VIP auction, you do know that there's multiple sets of the same thing, and basically they list it as the same thing. When in fact, some of the sets were used in different episodes, or there was a set of 2 or 3 to where the sets were split up between, like say, a season 1 to a season 2 or a season 3 usage. Because when they have these things, they basically toss them in a box and just use them when they need them. And they identify them later for auction to where it's just like, oh, yeah, we used it for this one. Yeah, just label it as that. So a lot of times I get asked to go through that to find a specific scene where something was used. And as a matter of fact, I was luckily and blessed enough to see and identify the very first chainsaw used in Ash vs. Evil Dead because they wanted to know where this one was from and to know what scene, and I was able to identify it as the first appearance in Ash vs. Evil Dead Season 1, Episode 1. And I was able to also work on a piece for that for its presentation, which I think is very cool. I didn't modify the body or anything. It was just adding a piece on. They didn't have the bar with it, and they wanted the bar that had the foam chain on it, you know, the thicker one, so I made a fake bar for it to fit. So I think that's pretty cool, and I'm very lucky and blessed to be a part of that. So what are we going to be talking about? We're talking about this today, a cabin rock. Now, in the VIP auction after the show ended, there was, I think, around 3 to 4, maybe 5 of these auctioned off. What this is on the cabin set they had, the cabin was on a set. It wasn't out in the wild, it was on a set. And these are the rocks that sat in front of the front steps in Ash vs. Evil Dead. Now, this is a foam rock I got from the VIP auction for, I think, $50. And it was labeled as Heather's rock. And Heather was played by Samaria Weaving in Ash vs. Evil Dead. And some are labeled as Kelly's rock. Now, the thing about it is, Heather never used a rock. It was only Kelly. Kelly grabbed one of the front rocks and threw it at the door. And we need to identify if this one specifically was the one that was shot for that scene, throwing it at the door. And I'm sure they did it multiple takes, things like that, to make what they wanted for TV happen. So I'm sure she threw like many of the rocks. And this one specifically being broken, and I'll give a close-up here in a second, that it's going to be easy to identify in Ash vs. Evil Dead. So what we're going to do, after I show you a close-up of the rock and explain a little bit more about it, we're going to go over episode 10 from season 1 in Ash vs. Evil Dead and see if this is specifically the rock that Kelly threw at the cabin door and they used that shot. So here is the cabin rock. Now, I'm sure they used 1, maybe 2 different molds to make these fake rocks. But if you look right here, you can see the finished area to make it look like a rock. But once we turn it to this side right here, you can see the breakage of that outer side, that outer covering, and you can see the foam inside. You can see the break right there. Here's the back side. And this is at the state where I received it originally a few years ago. You can see the breakage all the way up to here too. So what we're going to look for in the video of Ash vs. Evil Dead Season 1, Episode 10 is to see if we can find that breakage. If we can find that breakage, we can identify it a lot easier versus it just being the standard, what they made for production. And as a matter of fact, when I received this, it was still wet from that scene. It was a raining scene, you know, the rain was coming down, but it was still wet when I received it. So Very cool piece. So let's go ahead and identify this and see if it is, in fact, the rock that Kelly threw, and if it is the scene they used with this specific rock. Okay, now let's look at the rock. You can see it on this side of the screen right here. Let me see if I can move that, adjust this over a little bit for you guys. There we go. Now, you're gonna notice that flat side, that finished side of the rock. But one thing you'll see here is this jagged upper line, and then this broke piece right here. And then you see that indentation in between, and then this other side of the rock. Let's move it forward so you get a little bit better shot, because it is in motion. Another line right here, you can see that's kind of unfinished or broken on the back side down here. And you can see that line a little bit better. Okay, see if we can turn that just a bit more. Okay, here's more of that defining line right here. So what we're gonna look into on the rock that I have is check out this indentation as well. This specific indentation is a biggie because that is a break, since the finished area is gone from here. Okay, again, backside of the rock right here. Get that break line all the way to the top. We need to remember this, especially in this indentation. That's a good shot right there. That ledge, of course, that A shape, this indentation down here. All right, let's compare this to the rock real quick. Let's look at this line up here, this line, and especially this one right here. So I got it in the same angle. So we have the rock in the background. So we have, if we angle it just right, you can see that line up top. And we're gonna look at this next. That is this area right down here. It looks like it might have broken off a little bit more. Of course, this was in storage for a while, and really it's all about angle. So the angle is going to be kind of like that. This indentation right here is right along with that indentation here. And let's look at the back angle from this to here. Let's kind of get it in the right angle. And there it is. You can even see that right about there. Let's move it forward a little bit more. And again, when they auction these off, they just put names on them. So you got that to there. Same thing with over here. Then you got that. See this line coming down here? It's right there. And then this crap down here is on the back side right there. So far, and matching up this line right here to that line right there. So another thing that I'm doing right now is testing out the lighting. Now I'm filming with one hand and holding with the other, so bear with me and go with my instructions. What you'll see towards the top where the shade or the shadow is on the inside, you will see that defining line that other rock has. Another thing is right here, where that hole is to that line. If you scroll back just a little bit on this video, you will see that line specifically as well. The one thing is though, you will notice more of that outer coating is torn off. Now, we don't know how many takes they took with this specific rock. We also don't know how it was handled during production, since they had 3 seasons and this is from the first season. So it could have just been tossed into a box and it could have been torn off. But what really helps on defining this rock as that specific rock is the fact the break lines match up. So, but still we don't have the other rocks to identify those to that specific rock, so that also really doesn't help. But at the same time, these rocks thrown, these fake rocks thrown, will not break the same. So far, the break lines do match up. So what are my thoughts on this rock and if it matches up? Now, while making this video, I actually went a little bit further and I spent a good hour really looking at it, deciding what has happened during production, given every scenario with this, and I will explain that. Trust me, you don't want to see me literally study this for an hour. So with the break lines match up. They do match up. The one thing that gets me to make my decision on this, if it is a rock, is the brakes as well. Because you can see that this outer layer has been broken off even more at times. Now, the one thing I was looking at and comparing was this ledge, specifically right here. And it matches up, except for one thing. There's a little more coverage of this up here. Now, we don't know how many takes they took of that specific scene. And we know from that scene, it's thrown at the wall. Some more could have been broken off since it was very wet and soaked down. And also, I don't know the condition of the other rocks that were auctioned off. So without seeing those specifically, not seeing those, I give this, I'm about 90% sure that this is that specific rock because of certain contours you can see. You can see this outer edge lining has been broken off a little bit more. And this backside was finished off. If you look really closely, you can still see some of this outer coating still kind of hanging on. So they did make a full rock. It did coat the whole thing. So at one point, this was a fully finished, complete rock, as far as I can tell. Well, like I said, without seeing the other ones in person and inspecting those, I can't be 100% sure, but I am about 90% sure that this is that specific rock, because the thing is, when you're throwing this scene after scene, take after take, it's going to break differently, completely differently. It won't break the same. So with the brakes, that is very conclusive, while at the same time, the extra brakes makes it inconclusive. So without seeing the other ones, I can't judge it and say it is, but I'm about 90% sure that this is the Kelly rock. So, because that scene would be like, kind of like that. You know, she has her hand, one of the hands down here, and at one point you can see, especially this ledge right here, which probably at the time, what it looked like from the film, had a little more coating, but of course it gets thrown against the cabin. And with it being thrown against the cabin, that could have been take 3 out of 10 takes. It's hard to tell. But the specific break lines that we have pretty much tell me, yes, this is it. So, final results. I'm not a professional or anything. I will say that this is, I'm 90% sure that it is that rock. And if anybody's asking, I'm not selling it. I've always wanted something from a cabin set. I have stuff from Evil Dead 1, Evil Dead 2, those cabins, but I wanted something like a set piece. There wasn't a lot from the VIP auctions, which is unfortunate. I was really holding out for anything inside the cabin, but this was one of the only things, and so I grabbed it up. And one thing I have to say, at the beginning of the video, I said that the bigger, wider chainsaws with the foam blade was in season 2, season 3. It was also in season 1, and it was in, was it episode It was season 1, episode 9. It's when Ash has the chainsaw against his neck. So it was in season 1. So I want to clarify that. So in the next part of this series, we're going to talk about the Knights of Samaria. Right here we have one of the real rings from Ash vs. Evil Dead. This is one of 2 of the female rings that were in the auction, the VIP auction. And it's Zoe's ring. And I know it's not a male ring. A lot of people are like, oh, it's not a male ring. Well, Zoe was the leader of the KOS. So, yeah, I have one. And I'm going to talk about how there were 2 sets of costumes. And I have one set. I know the guy who has the other one. And how he has half of what I have. And I have the other half of his. They kind of mismatched everything. So I will talk about that and go over the whole costume with that. And the Knights of Samaria rings, which I think is very cool. So, yeah, if you're one of the people who have one of the real rings, you know, you're like a card-carrying member of the Knights of Samaria. So I think that's pretty badass. So, that's pretty cool. And also, a couple other things. Before I go, I just want to mention that I go live while I'm building things, like chainsaws or whatnot, anything Evil Dead. I go live on Facebook, on the Ghost Beers, Ash vs. Evil Dead Facebook page. That's the only place to go live. So if you want to see me there and ask me questions about builds or anything, and I really talk about all kinds of different stuff, and I answer back to everybody who I can see who puts a question out there. So I really get interactive with people. I think it's pretty cool to talk to other people who are in love with the Evil Dead. And to finish this off, pretty soon I'm going to be doing a giveaway, since this channel has had now over 1,000 subscribers, and that's pretty huge for a very specific YouTube page that's mostly Evil Dead. I've done a few other things, but it's mostly Evil Dead. But that's pretty huge to be very specific to just the one horror thing. You know, I think it's huge, and I want to say thank you. So with that, I'm going to do a giveaway, so stay tuned to this channel. I'm doing it very, very soon. And it's not limited just to people into the U.S. It's worldwide. So, and I'm going to pay for everything. So it's not a lot, but something you won't have to worry about. But we'll talk about that giveaway in the next video or the video after that. So stay tuned, and you have to subscribe, and then we'll go over that, the specific details in the next video. So, love my rock, not selling it, keeping it. And I have the original packaging for it as well, and the COA. So, if you have an Evil Dead prop and you wonder what scene it's from, hit me up on Facebook or Brett's Groovy Chainsaws, and I might be able to help you out. So until next time, you guys stay groovy.